Alright guys, so now we're going to start to use the Express router so that we can have separate files for basically each of our resources. We're going to have three main resources: users, profile, and our profiles, and posts. Okay, those are the three resources we're going to be using. So basically we need separate files for those because we don't want to stick all of our routes in this file. It'll get way too long and just too messy. Okay, so what we'll do is create a folder inside of our root called routes, and then inside here, since this is basically just a back end, we're not going to be rendering views or anything like that. All we're doing with this Node app is serving JSON, and then we'll pick up that JSON from our front end React app. So I'm also going to create a folder here called API. Okay, everything is going to be in this API folder. So we're going to have a file called user or users.js. So this will be all of our users route, anything that has to do with authentication, stuff like that, login, all that stuff, passport. And then we also want a file called profile.js. So this is basically to fetch or create the user's profile. The profile and users, this is going to be different, okay? The users is just going to hold, or it's just going to deal with authentication, so username, email, password, things like that. Profile, on the other hand, will have things like location, bio, it'll have experiences, education, all that stuff. Social network links. It's going to have a lot of different fields. We'll have a profile model and a users model, so they're going to be completely separate. You could even call users auth if you wanted to. So the other thing that we're going to need is posts.js, because users are going to be able to create posts as well, and the posts will also have comments. So these are going to be our route files. So let's go back to server.js, and let's basically point certain URLs to those files. So let's go up to the top right before we initialize the app, and we're going to bring in those files. So we're going to say users equals require, and we want to pass in here, it's going to be routes/API/users. Okay, and then what we'll do is just copy that down twice, and then this one will be for profile. So this will be API/profile, and then this one will be posts. All right, so we'll say posts. Now we want to have, for instance, our route, if it's /API/users, we want it to connect to this file or this variable. So what we'll do is go down to the bottom here, and let's go right above the port, and let's put a comment here. We'll say use routes, and we'll say app.use, and we want /API/users to go to users. All right, we can copy this down twice. We want to do the same for profile, and the same for posts. Okay, so we can go ahead and save that, and then what we'll do, let's see, looks like we got an error here. Router.use requires middleware function. All right, so don't worry about that yet. That's because we haven't actually added the router to these routes files. So let's start with users. So we're going to bring in Express here, because to use the router we need to bring in Express first, and then we'll create a variable called router, and we'll set that to express.router. Okay, so now when we create a route, instead of doing app.get like we would have done inside of the server.js file, we do router.get or post or put or whatever the request that we want to deal with. So let's say router.get, Now, if we want, let's say we want to respond to /API/users/test. All we have to do in here is /test. Okay, we don't have to include API/users because we already did that right here. Okay, so it's going to look at that and then send us to users and then look at that last part here, which is test. Okay, so just make sure that you understand that. This isn't going to refer to just /test like this since it's in that route. Okay, so for now, what I'll do is I will keep test, and let's just set our function, our arrow function here, and this is going to take in a request and a response just like any route, and then let's do a res.json. So res.json it's similar to res.send, which we use to output hello world, but it's going to output JSON, and that's what we want from this API, is to serve JSON. Now this will automatically serve a status of 200, and I'll go over statuses throughout, HTTP statuses throughout this course, but a 200 status basically means everything is okay. Okay, and we're going to be downloading a tool called Postman to work with this API and test it before we have a front-end client to work with it. All right, so let's pass in some curly braces here because this will be an object, and we'll just say message, and we'll set that to, let's say, users works. Whoops, works. Now we have to export the router in order for the server.js file to pick it up. So let's say module.exports equals router. All right, so we'll save that. Now these other two files will do the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this. We'll go to profile.js and change, well, we don't need to change it because now it'll be API/profile/test. But we'll change this to profile works and save, and then we'll do the same with posts. We'll change this to post works. All right, so now down here we have no more errors, okay, because we have this stuff in here. So let's test these routes out. So we'll go to /API/users/test, and there it is. We get our JSON response. Let's go to profile/test. That works. Let's go to posts/test, and that works. All right. Now throughout this application, when we create a route, I want to give it kind of a couple description fields. So first one will be the actual route itself, and you guys don't have to do this, but I think it's a neat way to know exactly what route it is and what it does. Also the method it is. So this is, for instance, a GET request to API/ what are we in, posts/test. Okay, so we'll have the route. We'll also have a description of what it does. So we'll say description, or DESC, and we'll say tests post route. Okay, and then we'll also have the access, because some routes are going to be protected. So this is a public route. Okay, and we'll just tab these over as well, make it look a little neater. Okay, so each route that we create will have this kind of header, because it just makes it easy to know exactly what it does. So I'm going to copy this and save this file, and we're also going to put it here. We'll just say test, this is profile, so we'll say test profile, and also change the route itself to profile/test, and we'll do the same thing in users. So we'll just change this to users, and we'll say tests users route. Now the reason that we're going to need private routes is because some things we're only going to want logged in users, registered and logged in users to be able to do. For instance, the way that this app works is you create an account, you log in, and then you create your profile. So you create all the fields, your bio and all that. We don't want anybody to access the post request to create a profile if they're not logged in. We don't want them to be able to go into Postman and make that request. They should get back an unauthorized error, and that's where JSON Web Tokens come in. In order to access a private route, you'll have to send a token along with it. Okay, and the way that you get the token is by registering and then logging in, and it sends you a token. You then send that token with your request. And if that sounds confusing, don't worry about it. We're going to go through all of that in the next section. Now, I would suggest using Git as you move along here. You know, as you progress. I will make some commits on camera, but I will be doing a lot off because I don't want that to take up too much time in the course. But let's go ahead and just initialize a Git repository. All right, now before we do that, we're going to create a file here in the root called .gitignore. And what this file is it tells Git what not to push to our repository. And we definitely don't want the node modules folder. This is just our dependencies. We don't want this to be pushed to our repository. So we're just going to put in /node_modules so that that's not included. All right, I'm also not going to include the package lock file. So we'll say package-lock.json. I don't want to include those two files. So I'm going to save this. And then let's initialize this as a Git repository. If you want to stop the server, just do Control-C. And we'll say git init. Okay, so that initializes the Git folder. And then let's do git add all. And then we'll do our commit. So I'll say git commit. We're going to use the AM flag, and then we can just put a comment in here. So I'm just going to say initial express server with route files. I probably should have did this a little earlier, but it's fine. All right, and that's all I'm going to do. Now, later on, we're going to push to Heroku with Git. Okay, so keep that in mind. But not just for that. You want to keep a log. You want to use Git in all your projects. Okay, I just don't want to integrate it too much with this course because, like I said, I don't want it to take up too much time, and I'm just going to be doing commits off camera. But you know, if you finish a section and you want to make a commit, if you want to do it after every video, that's fine. However you want to do it, and you don't have to, but I would suggest it. All right, so that's going to be it, guys. Like I said, in the next section, we're going to start to get into the users. We're going to create a model because with Mongoose, you create models and schemas with the fields for that particular resource. And then we're going to get into authentication with Passport. We're going to get into JSON Web Tokens. And we're going to download Postman, which is an HTTP client so that we can make all kinds of requests to our API. All right, so I'll see you in the next section.